Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the show that proves if it's a fit, it's a fact. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method. If you're a service provider selling your own service and ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and convert 8 out of 10 of your sales conversations without having to act like a douchebag, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, then go to aleashabar.com. This episode is with Rita Goodroe. Rita is an award winning coach, community builder, and keynote speaker who helps organizations, entrepreneurs, and teams make more money with less effort by focusing on the meaningful relationships and opportunities that drive success and impact. Using humor and storytelling to break tough topics down into practical, easily implementable actions, Rita is a sought after motivator and community builder for organizations on the Fortune 500 list. Featured in the Washington Post and seen on NBC, CBS, and Great Day Washington, Rita's strategies and thought leadership earned her the Changemaker Award by the United States of Women Summit under President Obama's administration. Based in Savannah, Georgia, when Rita isn't speaking to audiences, you can find her fundraising for nonprofits, trying new restaurants, or spending time at the beach with her husband. And y'all, I talked to Rita before recording because I do that with all my guests, and she had a story I think we can all really relate to, where she was in a legal career that she hated and felt like she didn't even know how to allow herself to want something, because if she did, it would probably be something different from mainstream, and that's scary. And everything changed when she went on 35 dates in 35 days, and and everybody followed her. And she didn't expect that, but there was obviously something there, and she didn't find the husband that she was looking for, but she found herself. And now she helps other people find themselves. And I just freaking loved that story.
Oh,
So let's go. Welcome to the big show. Sales is not a dirty word.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I got to know, the 35 dates,
Yeah.
you found out, like, you weren't expecting this to be a lesson about you, right?
So I had just gotten out of a 5-year relationship. It ended very suddenly in a parking lot at 2 a.m. In hindsight, it wasn't sudden, but in the moment, it felt very sudden. And I was about to turn 35, and I was over at my best friend's house drinking a bottle of wine because every great decision begins with drinking a bottle of wine. And I was verbally vomiting about all my past relationships and said, I've been in 5 of these long term relationships. And the only thing all 5 guys have in common are that they ended and me. So I might have something to do with why all of my relationships keep ending. And by the end of the bottle of wine, I decided to celebrate my 35th birthday by going on 35 dates in 35 days. And I said, I'm not ready to find love. I want them all to be strangers. I don't want to know anything about them before I go on the date. I don't want to know their age or race or what they do for a living, nothing like that. And I want them to pick the activity so that I have to get out of my comfort zone. The whole point was to do things I would normally not do and meet people I would normally not meet. So I would have to be uncomfortable. So I would see how I reacted and what my habits were in those situations. And then maybe I would have some kind of understanding about what I was doing to kind of cause my life to be stuck.
Wow. That is a brave and bold move.
And a very, again, drunk move that happened on a bottle of wine. Like, let's just be honest. I don't know if I had not had some liquid courage, if I would have put out the email, because that night I sent an email out to all my friends, put it on Facebook. I had been running a singles meetup group in the DC area. And I said, here's what I'm doing. Here are my 35 days. These are the parameters. Just share this, please. And then within 24 hours, I had all 35 dates set. People wrote back and just said, this is incredible. Like, this is what dating should be, just meeting a person and like no preconceived notions and just being curious about somebody and what fun. And so sign me up. I want to be one of your dates. And because I couldn't really know anything about them or say no, really, I was like, okay, okay, okay. So it's very easy when you're not being picky to set 35 dates in a row.
I'm not surprised at the setting 35 dates thing. I'm surprised at the, like, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable and see how I act to uncover where I might be keeping myself stuck. It's like a very deep
It was deep.
insight and strategy that I feel like most people wouldn't have even, like, caught onto.
Yeah, maybe. I just knew I had to feel something different than what I was feeling, which was sadness and brokenheartedness, and something had to change. I was like, there, if I'm not getting the results that I want, then I have to take ownership of a piece of that, but I don't know how or why or what that means. So I think I need to figure out a little bit about my habits, is where that came from.
So, what habits did you discover?
Yeah, I mean, so much, right? So, like, I mean, even from date one. So, like, during date one, there was a monsoon basically in the streets of DC. It was pouring rain, and the guy called me and said, "Hey, I just don't think it's gonna really work for tonight." And I just started freaking out because this was supposed to be 35 dates in a row. And if the first date already was going to get canceled, then like the whole project wasn't going to work. I mean, like the plan, it was not going according to plan. And that date is where I found out I might have control issues around things. And my friend, when I told her, she said, "Well, Rita, like, why don't you just move him to the last date and make date two date one, and then you still have 35 in a row?" And I was just like, my mind was not open to seeing things outside of every single step and plan that I had already decided. Like there was no other alternative, right? And I was like, "Oh, that's not good." And we ended up going out on the date that night. Everything ended up being fine, but like that was a lesson. Another one, a guy took me to trapeze school, and I'm terrified of heights, and it was a whole self-discovery about like feeling fear and taking a leap, like literally taking a leap and doing all of that, right? Like everything from I underestimated myself to, and that was, I learned that from a guy who brought me an autographed picture of himself for our, I was like, wow, he just gifted me an autographed photo. Maybe I underestimate myself a little bit, maybe, but he also said I underestimated myself. And I was like, look, dude, if a guy with an autographed photo is telling you that, you need to listen to that. So, like, it
Yeah.
was just all this stuff about like how I was operating in the world from a place of like closed mindedness, control. And at the end of the day, all of it was rooted in fear. I was just afraid of everything, is really the most that I learned. Like, afraid of other people's opinions, their judgments, afraid of abandonment, afraid of things not working out, like just afraid is really at the end of the day what I learned. Just all my decisions were fear-based decisions.
Well, that sounds real familiar. I think everybody listening can probably relate. And so when you realized that everything was scary, you said something about like whenever you unexpectedly started to be a dating coach after this, and you started to see the same patterns in the women you were helping where they were just so concerned
Yeah, yeah.
in the other person liking them or being I guess the fear of them not liking
Well,
them
both.
that it made them act weird.
Yeah, both. I mean, like, so I became a dating coach because after people kept, it wasn't right away, but people at the end of my 35 dates, people were messaging me and during saying, "Hey, I took your lesson. I'm employing it in my life. Like, it's working. Like, would you date coach me?" And I was like, "I'm a lawyer. That's kind of weird." And then, the universe gets what it wants, and things changed at my office, and I ended up quitting and came home and decided to jump into date coaching. And one of the first things I saw was the fixation on what other people thought, right, of them. And I think that's just a normal, like, whether it's at work, what is my boss going to think of me? What does my colleague think of me? What does my coworker think of me? Well, on dating, it was, I remember a client came home from a date and she said, "Oh my gosh, like, I wonder if he liked me. I wonder if he's going to call me again. I wonder if I'm going to get a second date." And I said, "Well, hold up. We haven't talked about certain things. So, like, tell me about how you felt about yourself on this date. Like, did you feel respected? Did you feel seen? Did you feel heard?" And what came out was no, she actually didn't. He had said some things that made her feel disrespected. She didn't feel like seen and heard around him. And I said, "So then why do we care if he's going to ask you on a second date or if he liked you?" And she was like, "Oh my God, you're right. I was so focused on what other people thought, I didn't even stop to check in with myself and see how I felt or see what my opinion was or see what I wanted. I just immediately started going with what other people would want or and like that was just a normal default behavior that we get so hung up on other people's perceptions for us that we don't even check in with ourselves to really know what we truly want at the end of the day."
That's so deeply accurate and really devastating because it leaves people in these situations like, "How the hell am I here? And this is my life." Like, what happened? It like ran away from me and I just went along for the ride.
Yeah, but we
And
learn it
so
we learn it from a young age, right? Like watching TV and watching Disney and not that these things are bad per se, but I'm just saying like in almost every movie, every TV show, it's always about what other people want or what other people are thinking and how we're appearing for other people or how we're having to change ourselves to get what we want or so it's no surprise that we just kind of go through life like that.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scarily widespread.
Yes.
So you started to notice this issue with people not seeing and hearing other people and not feeling seen and heard. And you realized that there was this deeper epidemic of an inability for humans to connect. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's hard to feel seen and heard when you're not showing up as your authentic true self, and when that happens, it's hard to then allow space to see or hear anybody else, right? I had this client, I talk about her all the time, Sarah, and when Sarah came to me, she was getting a ton of first dates, lots of them, but they weren't turning into second dates, and when I dug in, I realized
Mm.
her online dating profile, her everything was crafted for what would stop the scroll or get other people to pay attention to her.
Oh,
So like if she saw a guy she liked who had sports in his profile, suddenly her profile had mention of sports. If she saw somebody who loved adventure, she would put like whitewater rafting or whatever. Like everything she was doing, she was crafting, curating, right? Like the image of
yeah.
herself to stop and attract attention of people she was interested in. But that wasn't really truly who she was, which is why she was getting a lot of first dates, but they weren't turning into second dates because there was a disconnect in who she really was and how she had appeared. But of course, she knew that as well. So on her dates, she was in her head around like, what could I say that would be interesting? How am I, if he asks me this question, how am I going to answer? Like, how do I keep him interested? How do I, because she wasn't actually really ever in her like true self from the moment that these interactions started happening. But the minute we did all this work, the minute she was able to just recraft everything from who she really was, like interest went down. She got way fewer dates. But the dates that she got were better quality dates. They went further, even if they didn't work out. She's like, they're still friends. Like we still connected because she was her true, authentic self. And then she could be present and in the moment and listen because she wasn't in her head trying to keep up this, I'll call it a charade, but that wasn't really what it was, but like this charade going. So she was able to just like be present in the moment instead of always in her head. And it's that presence that's important for us to be able to really connect and have conversations and listen to other people.
Yeah, I feel like I see that all the time around in like professional environments and like conferences and stuff. Like people are posturing so much that they can't even hear what anyone else says because they're just trying to look cool
Trying to
so
look cool, or
hard.
they're just like thinking ahead to what they're going to say, like before the person's done talking for whatever reason, nerves, fear. They don't want to look silly. They want to say the right thing. They want to get the outcome that they want. They want to look cool. They want to whatever, but they're so in their head, or it's just so distracted, right? The reason that we're not, I always say that whole thing of empathy, which is really like understanding somebody else's perspective, means you have to listen to somebody else, but to listen to somebody else you have to just like not be worried about all of the things that we're worried about, failure, rejection, other people's opinions. That's how we can just like not need to know what's coming next and not need to know where the conversation is going or where this interaction is going. And that's where the magic is because we can just be curious and like ask questions and follow the path of wherever it goes because we're not so attached to what's happening because we have trust in ourselves because we are just showing up as the people that we are. But we can't do that if we don't know who we are. And most of us just don't know who we really are.
Yeah, I have this like theory that maybe everybody's like actually a black sheep, but they've just shoved it down so far for so long that they don't even know.
I would believe it.
So then that would mean that nobody was actually mainstream or like the
Right.
minority of people would have this like shared trait of behavior and
That we're all a
interests
community.
and
Yeah, we're
stuff.
all a community of just not really be like we're all in hiding. Our authentic selves are all in hiding, and that's what we all have in common, right? We're all the same for that reason, but different for all the other
Well,
reasons.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like by trying so hard to appeal to people, ironically, you are unappealing
Yeah, you're unappealing.
because
Yeah.
something is off. So what are some of the trust building strategies that you share that make a big difference in getting the result that somebody wants?
Yeah, if you wanna build trust, I always say if you wanna build trust in any relationship, it comes from a place of, like, asking about other people. So it's really trying to, what are your perspectives around this? Or like, help me understand dot dot dot. So if you're talking to somebody and they say, "Oh, I love tennis." First of all, it's about asking more. Like trust is not going through, "Do you like tennis?" "I love tennis." "Cool. Do you like pasta?" "I love pasta." "Okay, cool." Like you're not like really like going deep on anything. So it's like, "Oh, I love tennis." "Oh, where did you learn to play tennis?" "Oh, I learned from my father." "Are you close to your father?" Right? Like we're so trying to get the conversation to where we want to go. We're thinking, ask about me. I want to talk about me, that we're just not going deep enough. And so people just want to be seen, heard, and understood. So to build trust, it's like, how can I let these people be seen and heard and understood? And it's by asking more questions and learning more information. But it's also more than just the facts. You want to learn people's perspectives. Like my friend Phil Jones, he's an amazing person. He always says, "Don't say tell me," which a lot of people say. Like, don't say tell me about a time that that was true, or like tell me, because people get on the defensive. So it's like, tell me about why you did that, or tell me about why you made that choice. Instead, say, help me understand. Like, could you help me understand why you made that choice? Or like, tell me about a story where you made that choice and it worked out for you, because now you're really getting inside people's motivations and why people are doing things, and it can be like so much more informative than just asking for the facts. So it's really saying, how can I support you? Tell me more about you. Like, how can I be here for you? And tell me your mindset. Tell me your reasons. Like, show me your thinking around this. And the more that you show that level of interest in someone and give someone that space, the more they're going to want to do the same for you. And like the more open that they become, and they kind of drop their guard and start opening up more because you've made that space for them.
That just lines up so beautifully with what I my approach to sales.
Yeah.
So, making people feel seen and heard makes them feel like you can understand how to if you can see them and understand them, then you understand how to help them, and you get curious, naturally curious. So many people are just trying to talk about the thing that they sell without understanding the other person and what it is they want or what their experience has
Because
been.
they're afraid, and they have an outcome that they want to achieve. That maybe they're like I was on date 1, like if things go off plan, they don't know how, they don't trust themselves to navigate, the flow of so they're so attached to the script, or they're so attached to the outcome, or they're so attached, like that they're thinking ahead, like what's the next thing I'm going to, oh my gosh, what if they say this? I don't know how to respond to that. I need to know exactly how. So I'm in my head, I'm distracted. I'm like not, and so I'm not really paying attention, and then people don't feel heard, right? Because it's like you don't acknowledge what they said, or you don't go deeper on it, or and so then they just, that's where that disconnect comes in. But it's from fear. It's a fear-based thing.
Yeah, the amount of times that I see, like, somebody ask a question and somebody like, a prospect gives this, answer that's about, like that's just heartbreaking, like, "I've been trying to get pregnant for 10 years," and then someone just goes to the next question, and it's like, "Hold on."
Yeah.
Like, acknowledge that, like,
Exactly.
that's a big deal that they shared with you, and don't just say, "Thank you for sharing
Right.
that," because that's so
Yeah,
annoying.
and it's sometimes it's more, I just did like I do a keynote on this, and I was talking about this on LinkedIn the other day about how important sometimes it is to not say anything at all. Like when someone shares something like that, just stay silent. It'll feel a little awkward for both parties, because I would say people think nothing is happening in silence, but that's exactly where presence is actually happening. So if you're quiet, then you never know what somebody else will start saying to fill that space, right? So it's like when they're quiet, they can process, they can think, and they actually feel safer due to the silence, because people are like, okay, like this is a safe, there was no judgment right away, there was no move on from this right away, there was no like weird response to this, like, and they usually open up and start sharing more. So if you just pause, as awkward as it will feel, like there's some magic that can happen in there for other people.
Well, and it sounds like there's probably some important body language
Yeah.
and facial expressions that go with that silence, like you were
Yeah.
saying, not judged and stuff to make it feel safe.
Yeah, like it's nonverbal body language is so important. I mean, in general, but like we're talking tone, we're talking your smile, we're talking eyes, we're talking if you're leaning in or leaning out, we're talking how close you are to somebody or how far away you are from somebody. Like all of that works together. It's not just whether you're looking, I mean, distractions are the reason we're one of the most distrusting communities out there right now, is because people are distracted from everything, pings, notifications, their phone. They're looking at other people when they're talking to someone. They're not making eye contact. Especially with our virtual communications now, people have lost a little bit of the art of like
Mm,
connecting in
yeah.
person through nonverbal. That's a skill that you can practice just like anything else.
Well, that is a great stopping point because, Rita, I know that you have some resources on how people can practice that. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Sales is Not a Dirty Word. Rita, you have given us a great story. You've given us some things to laugh at. I think there's plenty that people can relate to. And I hope more than anything that everybody takes away the inspiration and courage to really be who they are and think about what they want. Because honestly, like when somebody doesn't like me, I'm like, oh, cool. I probably like don't like you. So it's okay. Like you should go find people that you like because I only want to hang around with people that I like too. Yeah. So I know you have some great resources for people to dig deeper into this stuff and have those kinds of quality connections that are fulfilling and enriching, where you feel seen and loved even at your worst,
Yeah.
which is something that everybody wants. So how can people find out more about you and work with you?
Yeah, the best way is just to go to my website, which is my name, ritagoodroe.com. And there's a resource tab there and you can check that out. And then, or just email me, ritagoodroe.com, and just tell me like, hey, my biggest challenge when it comes to blah, blah, blah is, and I probably have a resource out there that I can shoot back to you to help you with that challenge. Or maybe you just have a share and I can say, oh, you might be interested in this. But the best way is just to go to ritagoodroe.com.
Okay, and that will be in the show notes, you guys. So, this has been the Sales is Not a Dirty Word podcast, where we show you how to convert 8 out of 10 of your sales conversations without pressure pitching or pretending to be someone else. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time.